All right, Warriors, the moment you've all been waiting for. It is Wednesday, 11 o'clock. We have CryptoCito. So my name is Coach JV. I am the top health and mindset coach in the world. What you believe in your heart, you think in your mind will eventually become your words and become your reality. I shared with you guys, we are working hard behind the scenes to bring you content every Tuesday and Thursday at 7:30 a.m. Kevin and I go on and talk about the spiritual side, the mindset, and every single Wednesday at 11 o'clock now, we're going to get deep into crypto. So last Wednesday, I brought CryptoCito on. I'm going to give him an intro in just a moment. And we talked about exit strategies. And that's what I'll be talking with the private warriors tomorrow morning on our private warrior call. But today we're going to dive deep into DeFi. But before I do, I want to introduce CryptoCito. So make sure you check out his YouTube channel, CryptoCito. He's bringing people from all over the world together. But him specifically, he's traveled to 30 different countries building cryptocurrency communities. And why we resonate together is our mission and purpose is to bring people together in the cryptocurrency. Just like I talk about with religion or spirituality, I don't care what religion you are, I love you. And I believe that if we all come together as human beings, that we can create peace and prosperity within this earth. But what people do love is they love finances, right? They love money. And the beautiful thing about that, Warriors, is that money can bring a lot of great things to people. I see within the crypto community is a new infrastructure of the financial system and building the new rails that we're going to operate on. But there's a lot that goes into that, right? So a lot of people are jumping in the crypto space because they want to get rich. But what truly is rich? Rich is having a foundation within your mind, right? Having that fundamental rich mindset, and through that, bringing that abundance back to the people. Because money now truly in the crypto space is just energy and vibration. So we're gonna have a conversation today. But first of all, how's your week been, CryptoCito? I know you've been very busy with content, so share with me. How's the week been? How's the family? How's everything going?
Yeah, man, thanks. I love the energy whenever you start with your stream. It's amazing. Love it. Yeah, man, the week has been great. It's going by so fast, but that's the velocity in the crypto space, especially. Blockchain never sleeps, Bitcoin never sleeps, right? So it's kind of 24/7. I started to do one thing though, because I think it's super important, especially if you're in a crypto bull run. A lot of people get kind of like overexcited and they are on the phones 24/7, checking the portfolio, checking the prices. So one thing that I stopped, and I encourage everybody to do that right now, if you're doing that, if you're guilty of that, is don't sleep with your phone in your bed. Put it in the next room as far away as possible, because otherwise it will drive you crazy, right? If you have your portfolio in your mind 24/7 and then at 3 a.m. you wake up with one eye and you want to check the price and you get this kind of like dopamine shock, it's not good for your health, right? It's psychological warfare. So don't do that. You'll sleep better, you will feel better. And I think that's one big learning for me this week.
Yeah, that's awesome that you brought that up too. I love that you brought that up because the thing I love about the crypto space is, number one, it gives you purpose, right? You're excited, you're motivated. There's something to look forward to on a daily basis. I think a lot of people are craving that right now. We're all locked down. There's not a lot of interaction. But you brought up a really good point about technology, having that stuff within your room. Also, another thing is you should be asleep from 10 p.m. till 2 p.m. What I mean by that is during those times, if you sleep longer on the other end, that's fine. But our bodies need to recharge, right? And if what you taught me too, to be honest with you, is to really focus on that long-term game, right?
Right.
You helped me believe in the real infrastructure of where we're heading in society with Web3. I'd never heard of that before. And so, Warriors, what we want to encourage you, this is a long-term game. This is about building not only generational wealth, but building new infrastructure for a new banking system, right? And so there's a lot of great things going on. So great advice. And those just jumping on, he was talking about move your phone, get an old school alarm clock, put it in there, wake up with your alarm clock, make sure you get some exercise, get that good water in your system. All right, so there's a lot of crazy things going on. In America, we had Gary Gensler, he went through his nomination yesterday, and there's so many different opinions on it, right? And so we have a crypto friendly or crypto educated SEC chairman coming into the SEC space. Now, one thing that I saw today, and I got to vet this out, guys, so don't jump on me on this one, but Walmart, one of my warriors sent me an email. I got to vet it out first, and I'll do a YouTube video on it, but Walmart is getting into finance, and I'm like, okay, this is getting crazy, warriors. So we're talking about the central banks building CBDCs, the original banking system. Now, that's what I'm an expert in. I know the banking system like the back of my hand. I learned how to scale banks from the ground up, right? So I know literally when we were going through banking school about 9 years ago, halfway through school, they had to switch to fintech, financial technology. So we were starting to lower branches, raise up more ATMs, talking ATMs and connecting customers through virtual channels. And so now we're heading into a whole new realm. And one of the biggest questions, CryptoCito, I get is DeFi, DeFi, DeFi. Now, I have a little bit of knowledge on it, but I know you have a deep knowledge on decentralized finance. It's really the understanding of what does it represent? What does it look like? What does it look like from a customer perspective? So what I want to share with you guys is in regards to the infrastructure of banking, what I believe in the banking system, the original banking system. So you have a central bank, right? The central bank is very different from a commercial bank. The central bank is what funds the commercial banks, right? So there's this liquidity system going on and the borrowing. And so I've told warriors that when you deposit $100 into a bank account, there's only $10 that's saved by the bank. They only have to take 10%. It's called fractional, right? So they take 10% of your money and then they lend out your other 90%. So this banking system that we live in is based on a debt-based society. So as the economy collapses, which it is going to collapse, the old financial system, and the stock market is in fantasy economics, people are moving towards a decentralized finance model. And so I just want to kick it over to you and maybe share with us a little bit about decentralized finance, what your thoughts are. And yeah, I'll give you the floor is yours. So what DeFi is?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up central banks because so the whole crypto space and the whole ideology of decentralizing finance as a whole is basically that Bitcoin replaces central banks, right? It's a new monetary standard that is not based on debts, right? It's actually the exact opposite. And Bitcoin has really proven the concept, and it really made this technology, like it proved the concept of the technology, right? Of the underlying technology, which we call decentralized ledger technology. Now, blockchain is one part of that. There's other models that you can apply. And over the years, the whole space evolved, right? We've seen Bitcoin gained a lot of traction. I think in the early days, it was kind of very anarchic people that were in that, right? Like, we have to get rid of the banks. We have to, build our own kind of like circle and a lot of also kind of illegal activities that went right with Silk Road in the early days, where Bitcoin was used as a currency on the dark market. But over the years, as this entire industry grew and evolved, especially with the hype wave in 2017, there came new products right on the market. And if we want to really build a new financial system, we have to replace not just central banks, but also commercial banks, like you were saying, right? And that basically means we have to replace their products one by one, right? Lending, liquidity provision, right? Earning interest. There has to be some sort of cash flow, right? Yeah. And as we're now, well, from a crypto perspective, right? Sure, in the short term, we're all there to, catch 100x, make crazy amounts of money. Yeah. Like you were also alluding to in the intro, in the long term, we're building the Web3. But what this provides right now is a unique opportunity for us to really, really start to build this infrastructure as in decentralized applications, or we call it now DeFi, decentralized finance, which is basically a representation of all banking products on the blockchain, right? That's basically what it is.
Got it.
And it's a much more inclusive space, right? It gives you much more and easier access. It's much more liquid, right? The more people join this ecosystem. So overall, I think DeFi is really right now in its infancy. We're going to see also a lot of exit scams. We're going to see a lot of people trying to take advantage of the hype wave that we're having right now. But I think if you step back a little bit and if you look at it from a neutral perspective, we're right now at the beginning of something very, very big. And DeFi is definitely here to stay. Now, if we talk from a crypto perspective, right? Crypto grows in hype cycles, okay? And in 2017, the main narrative that we had back then was ICOs, right? Initial coin offerings, price speculation. That's basically all we had, right? And well, back then, of course, that also proved the concept because you could now issue certain cryptocurrencies through the Ethereum blockchain back then and generate token sales, right? There was a lot of fraudulent activities as well. So that was kind of like the first real big hype wave. Now, fast forward to 2020, that was kind of the first year when we really had a massive wave of decentralized finance applications that gained a lot of traction, right? And that launched also the hype cycle that we're in right now, right? You're seeing, I'm sure that you're getting a lot of messages every single day from people like, hey, can you tell me about DeFi? Can you tell me about this project, about this coin, right? What about that coin? So there's so much enthusiasm right now, and so many people that want to get involved in that. And yeah, I just think we're at the beginning of a new hype cycle, of a new massive hype cycle. This time we're also including the institutions, like you already mentioned in the beginning.
Yes.
Giant corporations are looking into finance, and not just traditional finance, right? They're talking about financial technologies, building their own financial service ecosystem, right? Maybe even launching their own coin, right? We've seen it multiple times. Even JP Morgan is launching their own coin. So we're seeing kind of like a whole disruption of the entire financial industry right now. And I think, yeah, there's probably two extremes that are colluding right now. But I'm very chilled. I mean, yeah. I'm super chilled. I'm very excited to be part of this, to use all these products, and maybe later we can talk a little bit about products that I'm using that I think make sense, and my learnings so far. But yeah, I think we're at something huge here.
Yeah, so I want to talk about, so I'll unpack it from the banking side. So from the banking, like if you guys don't know, I was in the banking system for 12 years, got an executive banking degree, and I learned how to scale banks from the ground up. And so what he's talking about, decentralized finance, right? So if you have, say you have a personal loan, right? You're moving the personal loan into a crypto type system where I could take my money and say CryptoCito has his own DeFi. I could go to his DeFi platform and say, here's my $1 million. You're going to take my $1 million. You're going to lend it to another person, right? And you're going to give me an interest rate. You're going to give me an interest rate on that money. And then the person who's the mediator, whatever, giving the money to the other person makes a profit off that interest rate, right? And so it's your own banking system. So now here's what I think is going to happen on the banking side. Now you're seeing central banks get involved in CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. And I want to share with people that CBDCs, a digital dollar, is very different than a fiat dollar. Now the difference is a fiat dollar is what we're used to. If I had a paper dollar in my hand, a paper dollar, we call it a dollar. It's digital because it's on a computer, but figure a dollar and then a CBDC. They're going to call it a central bank digital dollar, right? Now, the difference is a CBDC, what I think is happening within the economy is that we are in a very tough position. Liquidity crisis, there's low interest rates, right? They're just printing money into infinity. And if they move it into the central banks, it moves us closer to the central bank, the people. And so they'll start giving us a stimulus check frequently, right? And what that does is it gets the people to rely on the central bank. And commercial banks, I believe, are going to have to switch into a model like you're talking about. They're going to have to get involved in customer service, cross-border payments, remittances. They're going to turn more into like a Western Union type service industry because we become the bank. And so if I was a bank owner right now, what I would be doing is what JP Morgan's doing. I'd be creating my own coin, my own blockchain system. I would be figuring out how to innovate as quick as possible to teach other banks how to get into the system. So, talking about DeFi, let's give me an example of, in regards to, did I explain that correctly? Like, for example, in regards to staking and how that works?
Yeah. So I think there's no exact definition of DeFi. If you ask a Bitcoiner what is DeFi, he will say Bitcoin is DeFi, right? And to some extent, it's true, right? It's decentralized finance, right? It's a new decentralized form of money. But what it doesn't do, it doesn't generate cash flow, right? So the whole concept of decentralized finance basically went mainstream when you could actually generate cash flow, and when you could actually put your coins to work for you, right? So I think one of the killer applications in that field has been Uniswap. Uniswap is a very large decentralized exchange, right? So it's basically the decentralized alternative to something like Coinbase or Kraken or Binance, right? So so let's, if you want to understand what Uniswap is actually doing, let's first talk about what is Coinbase doing, right? So Coinbase is a company, right? They have opening hours, they have employees, they generate revenue, and they're just a centralized authority, more or less, right? So those are actually the guys that we want to get rid of, right? But for now, it has been, the market has just been too small and not mature enough for us to start from, we're starting with everything fully decentralized, right? Access to coins, exchanging and trading coins, right? We couldn't do that until now.
Right.
We had to go through central authorities, right? We had MTGOX from 2010, 11, 12, right? The early days. Now we have much more varieties of centralized exchanges. But now 2020 has actually been the first year where the model of decentralized exchanges went really, really viral. So Uniswap came on the scene. They had some really strong funding. It's actually also like the development arm behind Uniswap. They had the funding to build that, right? Of course, you have to pay salaries to the guys who code that. But the protocol itself and the platform itself is fully decentralized. It's basically immutable code on the Ethereum blockchain, right? So what you can do as a user, if you want to say, okay, I want to now get involved in that space. I want to become a liquidity provider, for example. Like that's the best use case, in my opinion, on Uniswap, right? So what you can do, you let's say you sign up an account through MetaMask, which is a decentralized wallet, right? Which is the thing that you click a few buttons. You have to write down your seed phrase on a piece of paper to make sure you never forget it, never lose it. And then you have a private key and a public key, right? And what you can do with that, you can load it up with coins, and you can say, okay, I want to provide liquidity for a certain trading pair, right? And that's exactly what Coinbase is doing, right? If they list a certain coin, they provide liquidity for that pair, right? Which is, again, part of their business model, right?
Yes.
Now, on Uniswap, users can become liquidity providers. And that's what we call automated market makers, okay? So now everybody is actually invited to become that part of the broader liquidity pool, right? Yep. So what you have to do in order to do that, you have to purchase the equal amount of the pair that you want to provide liquidity for. And then the protocol will automatically calculate how much is the share that you contribute to the entire pool. How much is that in comparison to the entirety of the pool, right? Yep. And then this percentage will also earn you fees, right? Because obviously there's trading activity. Yeah. So you earn fees partially of whatever percentage you have from the entire pool. And this is amazing. This is beautiful, right? Like now we don't have to rely on central authorities anymore. Obviously it's dangerous because there can be scam tokens, right? There can be scam token contract addresses that people like don't. So I wouldn't recommend anybody to do that if you don't really, if you're not familiar with that.
Right.
But if you have done it once or twice and you get it and you've played around with it, you're like, holy, this is actually amazing, right?
Yeah.
And it's fully decentralized. It has 100% uptime. It never goes down. There's no maintenance, right? It's awesome. It's just running on the blockchain, right? And you can't shut it down. So that's kind of one breakthrough innovation that DeFi has brought so far. Now there's multiple other scenarios like peer-to-peer lending, which is something for those who have heard of Aave, for example, is a coin that went really, really big. Compound is another project. So those are more in the peer-to-peer lending space. I think lending is more like easier to grasp than providing liquidity on a decentralized exchange. But yeah, so those are some of the breakthrough innovations that we have. And one key metrics, I actually was pulling that up as you were speaking earlier. Guys, check out the website defipulse.com. defipulse.com, because what you can see there is you can see the total value locked in DeFi.
Is it Pulse?
P-U-L-S-E. DeFi, D-E-F-I, and then P-U-L-S-E, Pulse.
Okay.
And on that side, what you can see the total value locked, which is the key metrics of how big is DeFi, right? If somebody asks you, like, how do you measure DeFi? Like, that's the number to look at, right? Wow. That's basically the amount of money which is locked in smart contracts, like I was just explaining to you. For example, providing liquidity, right? If I provide liquidity for a certain trading pair, it gets locked into a smart contract. So that would be added to that number. And where are we sitting right now? We're sitting at $40 billion, right? Wow. $40 billion. And if you look at the chart, where were we sitting 1 year ago? Let's look. March 3, 2020, we're sitting, what's your guess?
So we're at 40 billion, 200 million.
Okay, bit more, 950 million.
Okay,
but
that's
less than a billion.
That's a crazy number. That's crazy. Wow.
But yeah, so you just see like this narrative of DeFi is actually not a narrative. It's not a story. It's actually real. Like
right.
There's actual money on the table, and it grows exponentially day by day.
Wow.
So yeah, that's the current state, and yeah.
Now, what are your thoughts too? Like, for example, this is what I feel, and I want to get your perspective on it because I feel you're a crypto expert. And so, for example, I'm looking at the banking system, I'm looking at the future, I'm looking at the World Economic Forum, the IMF. I'm going deep down the rabbit hole, and what I see in the banking sector, this is going to be a big bull run. Yeah, it's going to be amazing. But as we go back into the bear cycle, I feel like 2025 is going to be when everything really comes to fruition. Because right now, you think about it in America, we're just getting the new SEC chairman on board. We're getting regulation. There's going to be a lot of bad actors taken out. A bunch of regulation is going to come in, right? They're going to do the best they can to take control of this, and however they do that. But I feel like in 2025, that is going to be massive. I feel like people are going to be settled in. People are going to be trusting. Yeah. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think 2017, so up until 2017, I think it was basically experimental, a green field, right? It was kind of like unknown. It was still very exclusive, the entire crypto space. Then in 2017 was the first time we had this real retail mania, right? First time that big newspapers would report on Bitcoin, right? And I remember back then when I joined the space in March, April 2017, and Bitcoin has crossed $1,000 for the first time after years. I was super excited. I thought like, oh my God, imagine one day some famous person would tweet about Bitcoin. Imagine this, like picture this. This would be so cool, right?
Yeah.
And so that was the first time when everybody was kind of like hearing about it, but it was still all retail, right? It was still very kind of like, I don't know, is it a scam, right? Is Bitcoin a Ponzi, right? We still had that narrative back then of people claiming that Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme, right? Yeah. And so 2021 could be the year where we see really like the entire crypto space, not just Bitcoin, but the entire crypto space be accepted by the broad masses. The genie is obviously out of the bottle. We've seen metrics like total value locked, the entire market cap of all cryptocurrencies. Let me just look that up where we're right now. We're at $1.6 trillion, according to CoinGecko. I'm sure there's much more than that. But that space is just growing, right? It's kind of like, I think we have reached a critical mass. And from here, it's just going one way, right? Yeah. Sure, we have small hype cycles and bubbles and busts and whatever. But I think in the longer trend, we have now this network effect. Now, what you're saying, 2025, well, I think you're actually pretty accurate on that. Maybe by then it will be an entire economy that is already, functional. Like I said earlier, right now, I think we're still in proof of concept. I think it will take 1, 2, 3 years maybe for some products to really get established. I think, for example, Uniswap is a very legit project that is not going to vanish, right? So this could be kind of the standard. This could reach, I don't know, 100 million users 5 years from now, 4 years from now. So yeah, I think by then we'll have major adoption. I also hope, I think that's something that a lot of people tend to forget, but the entire ideology of crypto is not just to make like the middle class richer, is actually to financially include those who are currently unbanked, right? It's basically to bank the unbanked while at the same time unbank the banked, right? So you can view it as you want. But I think if you look at developing or emerging regions like Africa, Southeast Asia, Latin America, like there's so much excitement. It's still early in those regions, but I really hope that we can also get more adoption in those regions. So that would be kind of like my ideal scenario. But I think we're inevitably heading that direction. So
Yeah, and I want to recap what you just talked about, because a lot of people see, oh, crypto's a nefarious plan to take over the world, but people don't look at that side of it, the unbanked side. There's people that there's countries that are so poor that they can't afford to get their money out of their country because it's too expensive to move it across the SWIFT system, or whether they don't have access to capital or they don't have access to a system to move it, right? And so there's a lot of really neat things. That's why I'm in love with the crypto space. I love learning about it, because I saw it from the deep banking perspective, right? The monopoly of the banking system, to now this decentralized finance system, and how it does bring people together all over the world. How somebody in Africa maybe has this beautiful business idea, and now they can actually bring it to the world through this infrastructure, and it brings humans closer together, right? So there's two ways you can look at it. There's that nefarious, I hear it all the time, crypto is a mark of the beast, it's like, but there's also, I always do the pen thing. I use this analogy all the time. I could take this pen, I could write you a beautiful letter, I can stab you in the neck with it. Anything can be made bad, or anything can be made good, right? And so there's a lot of great going on. Okay, so question I get all the time. I mean, I probably get this message to me 30 times a day. I'm not exaggerating. Coach JV, am I too late to get into the crypto space? What do you think?
Cool. Let me add one more thing to what you just said, because I think it's so important. I have two examples of that, actually. One, when I was living in China 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I held a presentation about interest rates and how crypto could fix that, and how crypto could, especially in the third world or developing countries. And I was researching, and back then I figured out that in Uzbekistan, right, is the most hardest country to get a loan. You have to pay 80% on your loan. Imagine that. And that's where DeFi comes in, because DeFi fixes this, right? DeFi takes away this centralized middleman, which just exploits those people, right? And I think even in developed nations, we're also getting exploited. I'm in Germany here, right? Of course, the living standard and the credibility of banks, the credibility of middlemen is much higher than in other nations.
Sure.
Another thing is also in countries like Argentina or Venezuela, right, where you have very unstable national currencies like the bolivar or the Argentinian peso. They have strict capital controls, right? They don't want people to sell their local currency against USD or something that is more stable, right? So crypto comes in and actually fixes this as well, right? Because suddenly you can do remittances, suddenly you can have access to financial services, right? So I think that's super important and I always want to remind people, even though on my YouTube channel I talk a lot about projects, I talk a lot about DeFi gems and reviews on Cosmos, on Hopper. I just had a founder of Hopper on my channel today. I talk a lot about these things, but I think on a broader picture, I'm so convinced of the entire long-term impact that we will have. Now, to your question, is it too late to get into DeFi? Well, it would have obviously been better if you would start 6 months earlier from now. But the best time to get involved and get started is always today, right? I think on the big picture, we're still very, very early. Like I said, this is still proof of concept, immature space, and with it comes also the opportunity, right? Whenever something is being established from scratch, from kind of 0 to 1, there is also massive opportunity, right? And if you're talking about, is it too late for me to invest now to make money, right? I think, again, if you look on certain metrics, I think last time I brought up the stock to flow model on Bitcoin, which is kind of the major indicator of how is the current trend going? Are we overbought? Are we oversold? I think we're right now at the beginning of a crazy hype. I think it's not too early to get in, but it's also not the perfect entry, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So, but I mean, there's always new exciting projects coming up that you can really generate life-changing wealth. I'm talking about making 100x with your initial capital. There are those opportunities, and there will be hundreds of them over the next 6 months.
Yes.
So yes, you have the opportunity to create life-changing wealth with just one trade. It has happened. I've seen it, right? It's actually happening. But it's also getting more noisy. There's more people joining the space. So you have to be careful, and you have to actually do due diligence. So that's how I view it.
That's great. And that's one thing I love about you, man. That's because that's how I built my crypto portfolio, is being fundamental and not being too risky, understanding the cryptocurrency. I tell my story with the yield farming thing. I almost lost 16. I almost lost 16 grand in one swoop, and somebody called me and actually disrupted the trade, which was awesome. So I appreciate that. But it's like, you got to be very careful, guys. You got to be very careful. And so when you invest, like you said, I'm learning from you and someone how to read white papers, to go really deep through the white papers, understand the company, understand, and sometimes also you do have to take a risk, right? If there's a project that's coming up, you believe in it, if you really believe in it, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. So what are some projects that you see on the horizon that you're bullish about?
Good question. So my investment philosophy is basically multi-chain, right? I think that there's going to be a lot of projects that are going to succeed. For example, I've been a proponent of Cardano for a long time now, for almost 4 years, 3.5 years actually, because they launched in October 2017. So basically, since they launched, I'm a fan of them, and they just crossed $1.25, which is absolutely insane, right? Ranked 3 on CoinGecko right now.
Wow.
So that's one project I love. I think right now, also, if you look at the chart, it might be overheated right now. So I wouldn't buy in right now and expect an immediate 10x. Polkadot is another project that I'm super excited about. And I think the Polkadot ecosystem as well is doing really well. But I'm already seeing a lot of, riding the wave kind of hype projects in that ecosystem. So be careful. My largest bet right now is Cosmos, especially within the top 20. I think from a risk reward ratio, that's my biggest bet. I made a lot of videos about them. I talked with one of the early core devs from that team. So yeah, those are kind of like, well, Cosmos is my biggest bet. I'm holding ADA and Polkadot. I'm also holding the Graph, which is another amazing project for the Web3. And another, which is kind of like my second largest bet right now in terms of risk reward, is Hedera Hashgraph. So those are kind of like my larger infrastructure projects, but I'm also super deep into a lot of DeFi projects, and I'm actually also an avid user. So
nice.
Yeah, so this is kind of like how I'm like positioned right now.
Nice.
I think those 5 coins that I just mentioned make 60% of my portfolio. Wow. And then the rest is 20 or 30 smaller coins that I'm also using, generating yield. And yeah, so that's my current scenario. Now it's doing really well.
You talked about your investments in there, and then you said you're an actual user of it. What do you mean by that? An actual user?
Yeah. So like I said earlier, Uniswap is one exchange that I'm providing liquidity for a couple of pairs. 1inch is another exchange. It's actually an aggregator, so it aggregates liquidity from different exchanges, decentralized exchanges. So I'm also doing that. Then there's also something that is called Synthetics. Not sure if you've heard about that. Yep. But what it basically does is it creates, or you can mint synthetic representations of stocks, of cryptocurrencies, of crypto assets, and you can just lend them out, right? Or you can let them do something for you, whatever, right? You can lend them out. You can generate yield in different ways and forms. So that's also something that I'm using. But yeah, I think for this, you really have to be a bit deeper into it and really be committed to stay up to date, because also the rates are changing almost on a daily basis. So you also have to be kind of like on top of the things every single day, which is kind of a hassle sometimes if you have other commitments, if you have a family, if you have a full-time job or things like that. But yeah, so I'm just using that because I think I want to understand it. I want to understand what I talk about, right? And at the same time, I mean, some projects are generating crazy yields, so you also have the opportunity to generate 3-digit yields, which is something that banks don't provide you, right? Certainly not.
Yeah, one thing I want to ask you, and I'll start personally with me, and then it's a more of a personal question, so feel free not to answer it if you want to. But for example, like I left corporate America about in 2017 August, and I've created financial freedom in regards to I never have to work for anybody. I'm my own boss. I own multiple companies. I show up when I want. I pick my son up when I want. I go on vacation when I want. I can run my business from my computer. And I developed what I call passive income. And so what I found within the crypto space, and I learned something from you last week when we talked, right? And so like, just so you guys know, just being 100% transparent, I didn't get into the crypto space until earlier about 2019, right? And so I got into it because I was the nemesis. I was the banker side of it. I understood banking, and I was like, wait a minute, there's something. So when I moved over, I was like, how can I turn my crypto into something? For example, say all my businesses failed, right? I could still right now live off my crypto. And so this is more of a personal question, but I know you travel all over the world, and what I work to do is to help people create free their dome, right? And a lot of people don't have so there's certain types of personalities. I'd recommend everybody do what's called the human design. But my human design, I'm supposed to be a CEO of a company. That's what I'm supposed to do. That's my design. But also I try to teach people that you don't have to own a company, because to me, there's only two ways to create massive wealth: is to become an owner of something, right? And be the owner, or become an investor, right? And being an investor is kind of like being an owner. But in the crypto space, I know you travel the world. Is that how you developed your life? Do you live off your crypto, or do you have a job on the side? I mean, it might be too personal, but for example, by the end of this year, if ever all my businesses fail, I could still live a very abundant life just off my crypto.
Yeah, that's a fair question. So for me, it kind of started 4 or 5 years ago, where I was a university student, and before that, I had a job actually at Mercedes-Benz, which is kind of like, I'm German, right? So that's like the classic way. You get a good job in a big company. That's perfect, right? Yeah. That's amazing. But that was something that I always kind of like, I never felt really fulfilled by, right? I thought like, there's more. There's supposed to be more, right? I want to travel the world. I want to eat great food. I want to see the world. I want to see nice beaches, right? I want to just be free. And actually right now I'm just in my computer 24/7. So, but I enjoy it, right? So I want to actually do what I enjoy, and it's easier said than done. It took me quite a while to really, find what I enjoyed. I started trying out different things back then in 2017, 2016, right? But I found crypto. That has been the first thing where I gained traction and where I also earned a lot of money in 2017. But unfortunately, I lost it all in 2018, right? So that was kind of like, oops, that went that aged well. So that went quick. But what I did, and I encourage everybody who's in crypto to do, is you have to start, like, don't put all your eggs into the crypto basket, right? You can also generate online income sources, right? I think the best way that you can live sustainably in a free way is if you have multiple sources of income, right? Yeah. So what I started in 2018 with my best friend, who also was in crypto, we started to sell stuff on Amazon, right? Amazon FBA. That was kind of what we thought, like, that's the easiest thing to do. Let's do it, right? Didn't work out as planned in the beginning. We lost a bunch of money. But eventually, with, networking, and then suddenly you get lucky and you meet the right person, and it's like, boom, cool. This was unexpected. But I then met 2 guys actually that asked me like, hey, do you want to work with us? And I'm like, sure, let's do it. And so right now I'm partner of a company that is also in the Amazon FBA sector. Awesome. So that was kind of like where I generated my stable income. They taught me everything from scratch, and I'm so thankful for that. Really fundamentally how those things work. And then crypto started to really pick up again. I sticked around in the industry throughout the entire 4 years. It's been a tough 2-year bear market, but I see it's now also paying off, also financially, of course. There's a lot of ways how you can monetize your passion, your kind of like hobby as well, right? Like I said earlier, I don't consider myself a crypto expert. I'm basically just a user and an investor. So that's kind of what I am. But it's paying out, and that's my two things right now.
Yeah, which to me makes you an expert because you're a user and you're an actual investor, right? And that's really important. I want to recap a couple of things you talked about because I was in the same space. I left corporate America and I thought I was going to, I launched this. So I started a podcast. I wrote a couple of books, and I'll tell you guys exactly what happened. So it took me 6 months. I built a fitness program online. I got ClickFunnels. I read every single book. I did everything you're supposed to do. And I launched in January 2018, January 1st, supposed to be huge for fitness, right? 0 people signed up. I spent 6 months, a bunch of money building it. And so I'm like, okay, well, so I learned from that, right? And then I hired a marketing team. There's all these, it's been heavy, fitness marketing teams, right? So this company comes on board, brings them on. I spent $14,000, nothing happened. So I launched my program 5 times. But what I did is I learned every single time. And the encouragement that I heard in what you said is by not giving up, I promise you guys, by not giving up, the right resources will show up. And now here we are, 3 years later. So I have multiple, obviously I'm so happy and grateful the money comes to me increasing quantities from multiple sources on the community space. I have multiple sources of income. My podcast generates revenue. Our Warrior Academy generates revenue. Our supplement company generates. We have a clothing company. We have our crypto now gaining passive income, things like that. So I want to encourage people that feel like they're stuck or trapped in a job, that if you can find what you love to do, you can monetize it these days. You can monetize anything now. And so I consider myself a knowledge broker, right? Bringing people knowledge and information to one ecosystem. And you charge money for that, right? So you're charged. So anybody that feels trapped or stuck in a job, crypto may be a way to generate some revenue to be able to reinvest back into other space. And I like how you said that, because people see me as just a crypto guy, but I have multiple sources of income, right? And so, but it took a while to get there. And like you said, you stayed faithful to the bear market. So where do you see? So right now, what are we in? March 3rd, 2021. So it's been kind of, people that are new to the crypto space got to experience a big retracement last week, which was really fun. I think it was last week, people, and in the stock market, if you retrace 10%, people are jumping off cliffs. But in the crypto market, 27% is pretty normal pullback. So looks like we're having a nice little run today. So where do you see us going from here? Any predictions?
I mean, it's always tough, of course, to make predictions. If we look at the stock to flow model, which puts into relation the supply side of Bitcoin, which you can predict because it's programmed, right? It's fixed. And you anticipate stable demand. The stock to flow model, which is the most accurate price prediction model of Bitcoin, tells us, I think 100K by May, something like that. It's just on top of my head, but I think 100K by May. And at 100, I think 120 would also be the top of this cycle. Don't quote me on that, but it's just on top of my head. But something like that. At least we're going to see 6 digits Bitcoin this summer. And I think actually, historically, if you look at all the bull cycles, what all the estimations tell, we actually shoot way above them, right? Because of FOMO, because people get overexcited, because people just randomly buy whatever, right? Just if it has the coin or dot or polka dot or whatever in the name, right? Sure. So I think we're going to shoot way above that. I think Bitcoin could easily go to 200,000-300,000, right? And with it, of course, rising tide lifts all ships. Everything is going to go up. Yeah. And historically, what we also have learned is that altcoins tend to outperform Bitcoin, right? So if Bitcoin goes so 200K would be another 4x from here. I think Ethereum could easily go to 10K, right? Wow. So that's like, I think a lot of altcoins are going to explode. I think we're going to see one of the largest decentralization of wealth through cryptocurrencies. Wow. And that's great in my opinion. And to be honest, it doesn't take much money to move the markets because the markets are so small, right? You don't have market depth as compared to traditional markets, right? Like commodities or Forex exchanges. So it doesn't really take hundreds of billions or trillions to move the crypto markets, right? And that's why I think we can escalate pretty quickly. But and I think around September, October, it depends what the prices are, but I think around that time we could see a sell-off. People are going to take profits. Always keep in mind, in January, Tesla bought $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. If it goes to 200,000, means they made a 7x, means that their initial 1.5 billion is 10 billion. They will sell. I mean, Elon Musk's phone is going to be hot. It's going to be ringing 24/7, right? His board members are going to call him like sell. Like, I think it's not going to be sustainable, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I want people to understand the game so they can't be played, right? Because it's going to be really exciting. But
exactly,
you just mentioned something powerful. So imagine us little guys, right? We're at our house, and we're seeing Bitcoin go up. That's the type of conversations that are happening with the Wizard of Oz, right? They're calling Tesla or Elon Musk, his board. So he gave you a perspective of corporation. I used to be in corporate. They're calling Elon Musk and saying, sell, get the hell out, get us our profits.
Sure.
Our profits. As we're sitting there in our bed looking there, we're going to look at 10%, and all of a sudden, boom, the money just starts flowing. So that's important to understand. And so you shared with me a great exit strategy last week. What I was, I had this in my head. I have September set, and I'm going to tell my warriors when I'm doing it. You don't have to follow my advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but I'm going to pull back in September. It's just what I'm personally going to do. I was going to pull into fiat, but you got me the DIA. You pulling into DIA, earning some passive income right off of the interest. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull back in, and when the market reaches, I'm going to be patient, just like I've been through my whole crypto portfolio, is patient, and buy back in when the market retraces, right? And so that's important to understand. And also, what I encourage you all to do is surround yourself with a good community of good people, right? Not people that are, jumping in and jumping out. And that's what I love about you guys. It's like, it's when I talk to you or Selman or anybody else, it's like, it's understanding business models. And that's what I want to encourage people, like, understand the business. Don't just try to get into Dogecoin to make money and things like that. So anything else? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the crypto community can be very helpful. It can be very nice. You're going to meet a lot of nice people, right? They want to fight for freedom, but it can also be very toxic, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of tribalism out there. For example, if you say, oh, I like coin A, and this other guy only holds coin B, he's going to smash you for saying that. How dare you can even hold coin A, right? Like, that's like this unnecessary tribalism, which is due to human nature, right? That's just how humans are. But yeah, overall, I think, the crypto community, I still have hope. I still have hope. That's why I'm also really, really pleased to talk with people like you, right? Who just have this open mindset, and let's do something cool together. And teach people, like you were saying, to how is your saying? Learn how to play so you can't be played, or something like that.
Yeah, learn the game so you can't be played. So.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Every time they point you this way, there's something going. I learned that in corporate America. It was like we were the ones pointing people this way, and I'm like, this doesn't seem right. That's not what the people know. Like, for example, I'll run into bankers that used to work in my whatever, and so they're like, they don't even know that crypto is on the horizon. They're like, crypto's a fraud. I'm like, your bank literally owns a coin. Like, your bank has a cryptocurrency coin. Your bank invested $5 million into crypto. Your bank has the most cryptocurrency patents. They're like, no, we're not moving to crypto. It's a fraud. Because unfortunately, the lower level employees hear last. They just do. They're the last to hear when they get fired. They get a pink slip. And so what I'm here to do is to open up the mind of the people and give them the information so they can make informed decisions. And unfortunately, those who control the money, control the information, control the people. It's just how it's always been, though. And like, I like how chill you are. It's like, it's human design. It's human behavior. Cain killed Abel in the Bible. It's like humans are some humans are greedy, some aren't. And if someone gets rich, it's just going to exasperate. If they're a good person, they're going to probably be a more kind person and give more. If someone's a jerk, they're going to be a bigger jerk. So it's really
I think there's a website that tracks how many times mainstream media called Bitcoin dead, right? Over since the inception. And interestingly, it always happens when Bitcoin when the interest on Bitcoin is very low, right? So it's kind of like they're pointing you, like you're saying, they're pointing you to that direction, but that's actually the time of opportunity, right? That's where you should do the opposite. That's where you should research. That's where you should be greedy, right? When nobody's greedy, when everyone's fearful, you should be greedy, and vice versa, right? That's why right now I really encourage everybody to not ape into random coins just because somebody talks about it, just because some YouTuber has a fancy thumbnail with crazy price targets and price predictions.
Yes.
It's right now it's a bit wild, the entire space.
Yes.
So be careful, but overall, I think there's still a massive opportunity. So
That's awesome. And I love it.
It's just about risk management in the end of the day.
Risk management. I tell people on my YouTube channel, don't believe a word I say. I'm teaching you how to fish. Like, don't believe some long-haired hippie dude like trying to tell you. It's like I learned this stuff by getting the shit kicked out of me, to be honest with you. I've lost so many times in my life that I know how not to lose, but it doesn't mean it's right for the other person too. And one thing I share with people, if you're emotional about this, no matter what, even if a coin is really good, but if you're an emotional person and you create so much, like, it's like, this is, oh my God, because this right here, this is money. And if you're in a relationship, if you hold on to somebody like this, you're going to lose them. If you hold on to money like this, you're going to lose it. There's a fluidity. And that's what I love about crypto, is because money is just energy and vibration. I feel like you're paid the value that you give to the world, right? It's just the ecosystem. But we've been taught to, like, oh my God, I'm broke. I got my paycheck. I got to pay my bills. You should always pay yourself first, warriors. Always, always, always. Your company's paying themselves first, so you pay yourself first, right? You get a paycheck, take 10%, pay yourself, invest, do something with that money, because you're going to spend that money anyway. So it's encouraging. So I'm excited, man, to have you every single week. I want to thank you too, because just from having you on here from last week to this week, I've learned a lot. One of the things I was going to ask you is, what's your price prediction for XRP? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
$589.
I'm just kidding, man. That's the biggest question I get. Everybody thinks I only have XRP. I have a ton of cryptocurrencies. Not a ton, but I have very fun. The reason why I talk so much about it, because I'm an ex-banker. You talk about what you understand, right? And I understand. If I could be a salesperson for XRP, like selling the on-demand liquidity, because I understand the solve from a banker. I was just kidding with you, man. But let me see. Do you mind answering any questions? We got about 10 minutes. So do you mind answering questions?
Yeah. I mean, if it's easy questions, why not?
I'm going to pick the hard. There's not that many questions here. Let's see. Actually, there's really not. It's mostly comments. I just want to make sure. Yeah, just mostly comments here. Okay, perfect. Well, we're going to be doing this every single Wednesday, guys, unless something comes up family-wise. But also, tell us something about yourself that most people wouldn't know. Is there anything interesting about you that we don't know?
That's a good question. I have a YouTube channel, but I guess by now some people might know that.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, thanks for giving me the opportunity here. It's amazing. Love the conversations, love the energy, love the vibrations. It's amazing, man. And subscribe to my channel if you haven't, guys. And I'm talking a lot about crypto, but I'm also like, I think we can talk about anything here. I mean, it's just, in the end of the day, crypto is just one piece in a giant puzzle. And we're all on a journey here. So it's awesome. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me. And I guess we will talk next week.
Yeah, sounds good. So we got right here, you'll see the banner going across. It's CryptoCito on YouTube, also on Twitter. And then what's your Instagram page?
My Instagram, it's a bit more complicated. It's MIWZN.
Okay, gotcha.
MIWZN, yeah.
Okay,
for those who want to check me out there.
Yeah, you go to CryptoCito. That's on Twitter. I thank you so much, guys. So this will be every 11 o'clock. I like the live format. It's much better. We'll just flow with it. And if you guys have any questions, make sure the questions are really difficult for him next time. Just kidding. All right, guys. As we always say, warriors rise. Talk to you soon.